My name is Savannah Johnson. I'm 27 years old and I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder type 2 and anxiety when I was 25. Growing up, I always struggled to understand myself and I would really get frustrated with myself, and it was simply due to the fact that I experienced so many mood swings and I always felt as though I felt emotions way heavier and more intensely than others. With bipolar disorder, you go through manic phases and you go through depressive phases. So my manic phases, they're great. If I'm being honest, they're fun, and it truly feels like you're on this high that can last sometimes, for me, typically up to weeks at a time. And I enjoy who I am on manic phases. I'm happy. I'm entertaining. I'm productive. I'm extra, if you could say. But I remember vividly one time I was walking into this gym and I was behaving normally as I thought I was doing. And someone looked at me. I was dancing all over the place. I was happy. I was being entertaining. I was talking really fast. I thought I was just being a fun to be around person. And I had someone look at me and they jokingly said, "What kind of drugs are you on?" And I laughed it off. But that truly made me sit back and think. This was, mind you, prior to my diagnosis. It truly made me sit there and think of, that's not normal. That level of happiness that I'm feeling, this like carelessness, this overconfident fearlessness that I'm feeling is not normal happiness. So as I said, the manic phases are great, but they come with, in the back of your head, that you know what's coming next type thing, which are the depressive phases. And the depressive phases they're very scary, to say the least. It's like an overwhelming dark cloud that just goes on and on for weeks sometimes. It's a hopelessness feeling. I've always described it as I feel everything but absolutely nothing at the exact same time. And for some, that might be very hard to understand. And if you can relate to it, then I'm sorry. And for me personally, I experience really bad intrusive thoughts, especially when driving. And back to a scenario, I remember this has happened countless times. I would be driving and I would have to pull over, and I would, due to those thoughts, and I would stop, pull over, and I would just be bawling, crying. And it wasn't that I've ever wanted to die. It was simply just I wasn't afraid to anymore. I have two beautiful kids, and I would never hurt myself to where they would never be able to see me again. But the fear of death disappeared, and I looked at it more as a relief. More of I no longer have to deal with what's going through my head. I no longer have to feel alone during this. I no longer have to feel as if I'm hopeless and something's wrong with me. And I still experience those thoughts today, but after being diagnosed, it kind of gave me a sense of relief and a sense of peace, knowing that I'm not crazy and I'm not hopeless, and it's not what's wrong with me. It's just my brain's chemically balanced differently than others, and that's totally okay. I think I'm most afraid of the depressive phases, and because I know the intensity of them, but I'm only afraid of them during the manic phases, and that's just because I know exactly what's coming next. And as I said, it's scary, and it's nothing that I would wish anyone else to experience. It's, as I said, a literal rain cloud that just sits over you at all times. It's hard to get out of bed. It's hard to eat. I've learned perfectly how to put on this perfect facade that everything's okay, and I've learned how to autopilot my days during these phases. Every social interaction when I'm in a depressed phase is forced. It is autopiloted. I've done this before. I know what to say. And I, for a while, was very, very good at hiding what was going on with me. It got really bad when I was a teenager, probably around 18. And up until my diagnosis, I put on that facade so well that I had everyone fooled that there was absolutely nothing wrong with me.
Is that not exhausting?
It's extremely exhausting. I felt like a prisoner in my own mind. I felt as if I was completely alone, and being alone with your thoughts is probably the most intense form of prison that I could think of. And it's honestly, that's probably the biggest part of the hopelessness, is that feeling of being alone and feeling as if no one understands, and feeling as if no matter, if you do tell someone, what are they going to think of you? And if you, are they going to understand? Are they going to think of you differently? And for a while, that's exactly why I hid things until it got as bad as it did. And I vividly remember the day that I, for once, accepted help. I'm an extremely independent person, so I always thought like I can help and I can fix myself and I can change, and whatever I've got to do, like I don't need medication, I don't need therapy, I don't need any of this. I'm a do it myself type person, so I always believed that that's what I could do. I thought I could fix myself. And it was October 2019 or 2020, and I had just gotten a coffee at Dunkin' Donuts, and I was in the middle of what I'm assuming was a panic attack. I was shaking, I was breathing heavy, I couldn't catch my breath, I felt panicky just at the thought of driving. The intrusive thoughts started coming, and instead of pulling off, I got my coffee and I drove and I pulled into a parking spot, and I actually can go to that Dunkin' Donuts right now and know exactly what parking spot it was. That's how much this sticks out in my mind. And I grabbed my coffee, I pulled over, and I started just bawling, and I didn't know why. And it's not that I'm depressed because I have a reason to be. It's depressed because that's just how it was. Like, there was nothing that happened, nothing triggered it. It's just I was in a depressed phase. And I pulled over and I immediately pulled up my phone and I started Googling psychiatrists in town. And I called the first one and they told me that it would be over 6 months until they could get me in. So I told them thank you and I hung up. And then I called the second one and they were able to get me in, and the woman asked all my information and she asked me, she said, "What is your reason for visiting?" And I couldn't get a word out. And I just started crying even more, and I remember exactly what she said. She said, "Sweetie, it's okay. You come in at this time. We'll see you'll see so-and-so, my therapist, and we'll get you in with your psychiatrist." And I tried to say thank you, but it obviously wasn't coming out very clearly. And I hung up, and after that phone call, I felt an immediate sense of relief. I was still depressed, but I felt an immediate sense of relief because I felt like I had help at that moment, and that was something that I neglected myself of for so long. But I had hit my breaking point, and honestly, going to that psychiatrist and getting the help that I needed, knowing that I couldn't manage it by myself anymore, I was okay with that. I was okay with not being the do-it-yourself type person at that point because I had just hit that wall. And seeing a psychiatrist, a therapist, and getting my diagnosis was probably, it sounds dramatic, but one of the best days that I've had throughout my journey. And it's simply because I learned to understand myself better. And since then, I've become a huge advocate of mental health, and I will open up to nearly anyone about it. And it's only because the feelings that I felt of being completely alone with your own mind and not having a release to talk to anyone or feeling as if you can, that is something I never want anyone else to feel. So I'm the first person to ask someone how they're doing. I'm the first person to truly just sit there and listen if that's what they want. I'm the first person to reach out to someone that I'm not truly familiar with, just to at least let them know, like, hey, if you are struggling, you can talk to me, because I don't want anyone to ever feel the way that I've felt in those phases. By opening up, I honestly gained a sense of freedom that I didn't have. And that goes back to feeling like a prisoner in my own mind. I gained freedom to be who I am and not be ashamed of it, and more so do my best to understand. I gained clarity, I gained understanding, I gained compassion for those who are struggling with the exact same thing or even something completely different than me. I gained inner peace, which was something I've struggled to find for as long as I've dealt with this. I've always questioned who I was. During depressed phases, I look in the mirror and I hate everything I see. I don't recognize what I see, but I also hate what I do see. During manic phases, I love what I see. It's almost an obnoxious God complex type, exaggerated love for myself or who I think that I am in that moment. And then in the in-between, I struggle because I do flip between those ups and downs. I struggle to even recognize who I am. So having a diagnosis behind an issue and having someone look at me and tell me, like, you're not crazy, you're not damaged, you're not broken, you are different and there's nothing wrong with being different. So it helped me gain clarity and inner peace on who I truly am. I started here at FullTilt CrossFit 3 years ago, 1 year prior to my diagnosis, where I still was very broken and confused and up and down. And since the day I stepped in here, I was also struggling with self-esteem issues. I was unhappy with myself, my inner self. I was unhappy with my outer self. And from the day I stepped foot in here, it has felt like home. The members, the coaches, the owners, there has not been one person here that hasn't shown me compassion and understanding and truly made me feel valued and loved. I want to say the owners were actually the ones to stress me to go and actually get help and figure out what's wrong with me and help me believe that there's nothing wrong with needing help. So this place has felt like home since the very first day I stepped in it. The amount of inner peace, which I've said is something that I have struggled to find, but something I've strived to find my entire life. I've never felt more inner peace here than I have anywhere else. That, I mean, along with the exercise, I mean, that's fantastic and whatnot, and the results I have gotten from it have made me more confident on my outer appearance, but they have truly helped me develop into a person. Oh, I'm crying. Why is this why I cry now? Why is this the part? Oh, God. Every single person that I've met along my journey here has built me into someone that I'm truly proud of now. And I owe all of my self-confidence to the owners here, to the members, and to the coaches.